So previously on the Holographic Human Coach, we went over some of the laws regarding the law of reverse effect and the way it works, and also with the law of repetition and compound. And when we talk about program responses, it works with these laws. When we have a program response, if we're having a reaction to something, it's because it's been programmed in us. And we have some healthy program responses and we have some unhealthy program responses. And we have these 7 senses, right? We've got sound, sight, touch, energy, taste, and smell. And all of this data gets processed through each one of these senses, and they all become a program response. We've all experienced a smell can trigger something, you taste something, or a taste in clothing or whatever connects to these gestalt of memories that bring something up, a texture of something, the way you're relating to something, an action, an intuition. You hear something, you see something. It triggers what we call a program response because you're programmed that way through all of the senses. So by doing this technique, you literally get to create a healthy program response. One of the ways we describe it is when you're driving and you see red and blue lights, what happens?
Yeah, you immediately have a physical change as well as a thought pattern go through your mind, and some emotions pop up, and it's happening because of your programmed response in regards to the sensory stimuli coming in up from your subconscious. We've talked about, and what she's talking about, past gestalt of emotions. We've talked before on our prior segments about exactly how your subconscious mind is programmed. And you've heard us say that from the ages of 0 to 8 years old, you develop a lot of your life's programs that you've been running on since then. What we're talking about now is, for example, a significant event will happen in your childhood, or such as a bell ringing at school and you getting to class late and your teacher reprimanding you for being late to class. And a bunch of stuff is going on in your whole system at that point, including your limbic system response to the situation. Your limbic system is the one part of your brain that releases chemical compositions onto your central nervous system firing sequence. Nerves that fire together wire together. And so throughout your life, when you hear bell sounds, if the situation permits, it will continue to release the same chemical composition of neuropeptides onto your central nervous system, and it will create, through a chain link of different events, the same type of physical, mental, and emotional response. And that's what we're talking about, is it becomes automatic after several repetitions in compound. And a repetition is when something repeats, obviously, and compound is the time in between the repetitions. And so, you're 7 years old, your bell rings, you go to class late, you get reprimanded. And now at 35 years old, after a bunch of events has happened in your life that release the same type of chemical compositions, the same type of sound can release the same type of emotions you experienced when you were 7 years old. And that's a pretty intense concept to learn, if you didn't know it already. Right now, your emotional response in your present, or your thought patterns in your present, could be a direct reflection of a programmed response that happened in your early childhood that you are no longer aware of. It's just happening automatically.
And the way we create programs is similar sensory input from each one of the senses, the way we process it, time-oriented, and emotion. It's emotionally coded. So knowing these things, we've created these program responses, some of them healthy, some of them not, and let's give them some examples.
Let's talk about some healthy program responses. A healthy program response of mine is I grew up with a very loving and nurturing mother. When she would be proud of me or express her love for me, she would do so in a way that would invoke an emotional response. And so today, when I encounter similar situations with people that I'm associated with, I can express healthy, nurturing, and love to people that I come in contact with. And that's because it was developed within me from an early childhood. And even throughout my addiction and the hard times in my life, I maintained those automatic responses, which I can be very grateful for today.
Even things as simple as a flower. You can walk out and see a lilac. I see a lilac, it reminds me of my grandma. I smell lavender. It reminds me of calming and sleep. And all of these get programmed through the different ones. We've all experienced songs, things we hear. Sound creates our values, ethics, and meanings. And you hear it with a song you really like when it first comes on the radio, and then it gets repeated and repeated, and then you're sick of it and you don't want to hear it again. Or you have a memory with a song because of somebody or a time you were going through, and then it changes. But that becomes a program response. When you hear that song, it triggers some kind of response regarding it. You see something, you touch something, or relate to something, it triggers a response. And these are what those program responses are talking about. And as he was talking, when his mom did something you were proud of, there's program responses that you see in unhealthy relationships. I buy my kids things to show them I love them because I don't know how to show love. So that becomes a program response. I don't know how to show love, so I buy them things. Or people that get into abusive relationships, it's, they hit me, they love me. That becomes a program response, and that's what they believe. And all these things get coded different ways, and you can create these or choose new ones. Right.
We talk about, I heard you say, Whitney, that time is an important factor in this, and time plays a key role in all of this, what we're talking about. Time is a measurement between the events in our lives. That's what time is. And so as these events occur, one specific one I like to talk about when we're talking about program responses is the Christmas season. It happens every year, the same month, the same time, right? The time frame. I'm sure everybody can identify a Christmas season, whether or not your response to Christmas has been a positive or a negative thing. When Christmas season comes around, you experience the same types of, be it excitement, or even if Christmases have been stressful for you, you experience the same amount of stress, and the same types of emotional patterns come into play every single Christmas season. And you start hearing the music, and it reminds you of childhood experiences, and you start smelling the smells, and it reminds you of all these experiences that have brought you different kinds of emotions in your life. You see Santa Claus and the reindeer, and these are all programmed responses. The interesting part about being programmed the way we are is, if you grew up in, say, Colorado, and Christmas time was the same in Colorado for years and years of your life, and then you moved to Florida, even though the environment has changed, the same types of emotional responses to Christmas would be brought up. What are some ways that we can change our negative emotional responses?
Creating new reference points. You get to take conscious control of what you're choosing to focus on, and you get to reperceive, evaluate, judge, and decide. And the beautiful thing about our subconscious is it doesn't know real from imagined. And the technique we're going to go over today and share with you guys is a program response, and we call it a touch anchor. It's working with the sense of touch. So you literally anchor a spot on your body. You can do this with anything. He talks about Christmas. I enjoyed Christmas growing up, and then once my father passed away, I began to despise Christmas because it just reminded me that my dad's not here, and it was sadness because I missed spending Christmas with my dad. So my program response to Christmas changed. Still, you get to realize those things and create those new healthy reference points for it, and you can switch your mind frame of remembering the times you did get to spend with him to creating your own new traditions for your own family and create those things, and you get to make it, and it changes your response to that. And whether it's a time of year, it happens all the time. We get time reference and don't even know it. A certain time of year comes up when someone passed, or a divorce, or a rough time in our lives, and that time of year creeps up, and people suffer from seasonal depression and don't even realize that it's just a time factor coming up that sets it off. And so by realizing these things, you can create new healthy reference points. And a lot of the times in our lives, if we don't have any healthy reference points to a place, a time of year, or whatever, we get to talk ourselves through it. And it literally becomes a process as, okay, here I am. I'm doing this with my family. I'm going to the zoo. I'm enjoying it. This is what my kids are doing. And you talk yourself through it, because up until then, all you had was the negative thoughts and memories that were coming up. As we do this program response today and go over it, we have these anchors that we use all the time. I've got a confidence anchor, a calm anchor, I've got a strength, a acceptance, gratitude, I've got sleep, a multitude of things. And our subconscious doesn't know real from imagined, so it doesn't know the difference between a real experience or a vivid imagined experience. And you go in and imagine yourself, you know, a time when I felt confident and I was doing something, being confident, and you anchor it, or someone you've watched and they're exuding confidence and you program response it. And it comes to the point, the more you use these anchors, you don't even really have to grab the anchors. You just think about it and it affects your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors. It just triggers that. So knowing these things, you can program a response, a smell, a taste, sight, sound, touch, energy. All of these things you can use to create these, and you can just take conscious control and create these new reference points for something that's been a negative program response to you. And this is the way we create new programs and make those stronger in our life. So those are the ones that come up. Because whatever we consciously choose to focus on is what subconscious is going to send up. And the more we switch that and create new healthy reference points towards Christmas, eventually subconscious is going to stop sending up the negative and only the positive is going to come up, because that's what you've been choosing to focus on. So it lays the other program down and then the new one comes up.
One of the most beautiful aspects of this concept that we're talking about is when I first started learning the material that Janie Marvin wrote, and I started to learn about the ways my subconscious and my conscious mind work in correlation to create my reality. And I got to learn how my subconscious mind worked, and the fact that it's just gathering 400 billion bits of data per second. And it doesn't, like Whitney said, it doesn't perceive, evaluate, judge, and decide upon the data. Its job is to just gather data through your modes or your senses, right? How we were programmed through our past experiences through these senses. And as I got to learn that my conscious mind is the part of my brain that gets to choose. It gets to choose between a response that I would normally make in regards to any event in my life, or a response that I would rather have or prefer. And Janie Marvin has outlined and created a bunch of really simple techniques that we can use to literally reprogram our conscious response to any given situation. Anything that creates a frustrating response or an angry response or an unhealthy response of any kind that you inherently know, if you're being honest with yourself, is not something that you would like to portray about yourself. It's not something that you would like to feel right now. It's not something that you would like to represent yourself as. It's not part of your true character. And as you become aware of these events in your life where you have responded unhealthy, and you consciously get to choose to say, you know what, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to do a 20-minute meditation technique and program a response that I would rather respond just through using my sense of touch. And when I began to learn this and actually apply it to my life, and I would use one of my anchors that I've programmed in a situation where I would normally respond angry. With me personally, I've had a tremendous issue with anger in my life. I've had a lot of anger built up, and I would respond angry to a lot of situations. I mean, a wide array, and it was just my coping mechanism that I used. And so many different things would invoke an angry response. And when I got to learn that anytime I started to feel a little bit upset or a little bit angry or even really angry, and I got to close my eyes and calm myself and use my calm anchor, which is this one, it would literally start to alter my anger. I mean, it would just be like an immediate ooh-saw after a while, and I got to start being objective about the situations that I would normally have been subjective to.
But I think it's important to talk about all the different ways we're programmed.
Right.
I mean, it's not just anger. It starts from when you wake up in the morning, your alarm goes off. Are you happy about it or are you mad about it? 'Cause that alarm tone sets a mood for the day, right? And you can change that,
Yeah.
Alarm goes off. Are you excited to get up or are you mad that you got to wake up?
Yeah.
It's a program response. It's getting up. Are you excited to have a cup of coffee or are you mad you got to go make a cup of coffee? Program response. Everything throughout your day. You know what happens when that alarm goes off. Okay, I got to get up. I got to go shower. I got to go to work or brush my teeth. And it becomes like this ripple effect throughout your day. And your response to those things, you can create that. Mm-hmm. If up until this point you weren't a morning person, you can literally create a response to your alarm that, guess what? You get to be a morning person.
Right. Or your favorite coworker at work comes on shift and you have a response to that because of some interaction that you guys might have had in the past or something, and it's a negative response, and you inherently know inside, hey, I should be addressing this with love and compassion or understanding or whatever it may be, and you notice a response to, oh, this person that I usually don't get along with at work comes on shift. I can use one of my anchors that I've developed and program a different response that's more open, admitting and accepting the data coming into it versus resisting and not being your true self, person that you would rather be.
We really are programmed, whether it's your phone rings, what do? Your phone is a program response.
Right.
You answer it, you get a text message, it's a program response. Driving on the freeway, going to work, these are like automatic programs in the subconscious, and we have responses to them, and you get to choose those responses to them. Really think about throughout your day how much of that is just programmed automatic functions that you just go throughout your day, and one thing sets this off, okay, my alarm goes off, okay, I get up, what do I do next? And and you can choose your reaction to it, you can choose your response to it by knowing these things.
A lot of the anchors that I've set are more geared to my own personal view of myself. I hear stuff in my environment all the time, and it comes up negative, and I'm so hard on myself in a lot of aspects, and I get to choose to re-perceive, evaluate, judge, and decide my response to a conversation I might have heard or been a part of where people were just being my friends and bantering back and forth, and it comes up like really messed up and insecure and things that are not true about myself, that I've been programmed to believe about myself, like I'm unworthy of love, or I think I'm ugly, or any number of things that comes up to your mind throughout the day. I mean, how often do you viewers listening out there look in the mirror and think positive things about yourself? I mean, these are all opportunities for us to catch these thoughts, these emotions about ourselves as they come up, and create new programs, things that we would prefer to think about ourselves, to feel about ourselves.
So we're going to actually do the guided imagery of the program response. It's also available for purchase on the Holographic Human Coach to be able to buy and practice this guided imagery. It's very beneficial in a multitude of ways. Some of the best ways to use it, he's going to program response something new for him, and I'm going to repeat one. I'm going to work on my confidence one and reiterate it and make it stronger. He's going to create a new one for him in regards to believing in himself. Some of the things that are beneficial to do this on is things you struggle with. Also spiritual abstracts, things you can't go to the store and buy. Joy, happiness, compassion, love. He's going to do believing in himself, confidence for me. I have a acceptance anchor, gratitude, strength, calm. I mean, a multitude. You can do it for sleep.
Yeah.
People that struggle with sleep, instead of taking medications, program response, a good night's sleep.
Right.
Also, these things, we all have these natural tics we do when we get nervous, or things you just naturally bring yourself to do. Also, one thing I've seen be very beneficial for people is scars. You have scars on your body that you look at it and it triggers a response. You can program response over that. These scars of, do unconditional love, self-worth, whatever you struggle with and choose it to be. And the more you repeat these and use these, the more beneficial they become and the stronger they become through the process of repetition and compound. So we're going to do the guided imagery and do our own personal anchors and work on them so you guys can experience it with us.
I'm going to program response believing in myself, and I'm actually going to do it using the sense of touch right here on my face. I've noticed that a lot of the time when I'm questioning my own character or I'm thinking bad about myself, my hand is up here, doing something with my beard. It's been something, it's a nervous tic, like what she's talking about. And instead of me doing that while I'm thinking, when I'm doubting myself or my environment, it'll be believing in myself, and I'll use the sense of touch to program those thoughts and feelings into my subconscious versus the negative aspects that it's been for me. So One of the interesting things I'd like you guys to pay attention to as you hear this guided imagery is Janie talks about if you can't think of a memory that was your own, where you've experienced whatever it is that you're programming, which is for me believing in myself, then you can actually pretend to imagine a segment of a movie that you've seen where believing in yourself was a primary point of the movie. And this is due to the fact that your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between real and imagined. Your conscious is the one that chooses. Your conscious is the one that alters. So when you consciously choose to vividly imagine an experience, your subconscious takes it literally, as if it's really happening. And that's the gift of your subconscious and the opportunities that we have to utilize these sensory-based programmed responses. They're awesome. Let's give it a try.
Shall we? So doing this technique, you get to choose these automatic responses we have. We get to choose them, and using spiritual abstracts or things you would rather have in your life as your response. You literally get to choose your response, and then we're using the sense of touch to anchor this. So for me, I work at being more confident in all aspects of my life. So I can go in and repeat this over time. I imagine things where I struggle with confidence in situations or scenarios, and I imagine me going in and being confident in those scenarios and what that would look like, or what I've seen on a TV or read in a book, and I imagine myself doing that, and I literally program response and go over and have those memories, and I program them and turn up the dial and turn it up so it gets more intense. And then you release it and do the compounding, and you break state, change your focus. A joke, something else, start talking about something else and completely shift your focus into something else. And then you go back in and do it again. Whether it's a different scenario I'd rather be more confident in. There's all sorts of different scenarios you can play out and create these memories and anchor them, program them. And then when you're going into a situation you struggle with confidence in, or even if it's a situation you feel yourself, hey, I'm being confident right now, grab it and anchor that. Because whether it's you would like the confidence or you're being confident, it's going to reaffirm that anchor and either give you confidence or make your anchor stronger. And it gets to the point where you do it so much, it has a total effect on me, my thoughts, my feelings, my behaviors. It has a whole system response for me the more I use these, and these, for me, are some of the most beneficial things to do for the in-the-moment situations. It's I'm out in a group of people or teaching a group, instead of walking off and doing a technique, I can grab an anchor to get through a situation and then go work on the feelings or things that came up for me. These are very helpful for instant, change of response in a moment that I can just grab, and nobody knows what I'm doing especially if it's something you just naturally do. These have been very beneficial in my life, especially for in the moments. And the more you use them, you really don't even have to touch the anchor. It just happens. And it creates that program, doing the program response literally creates a program. So that's what's going to start coming up the more you use it.
You talked about you turning up a dial. And in the sense of touch, we're talking about distorting by amplification, right? And one of your major and minor meta programs is in your sense of touch, and it is distorts by amplification.
So we provided a link below for you guys to be able to go in and do this program response guided imagery.
Enjoy.